Okay. We'll call the meeting to order for the city of Saratoga Springs, Tuesday, June 21st, 2021 at 6 p.m. Present tonight, we have Councilman Carn, Councilman Wilden, Councilman McComber, and Councilman Podeska. So we do have a quorum. I've asked Councilman Podeska to lead us in our invocation and Councilman Wilden to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
Heavenly Father, we thank thee for this opportunity to meet together as a city tonight and discuss the items on the agenda. We pray for thy guidance and direction in doing so. We're grateful for this wonderful city and the staff and residents that really contribute to make this a great place to live. And we're grateful for these opportunities to be able to meet and manage the affairs of the city. And this we say in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Please rise. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I thought it was.
Okay. Okay. Public input. Time has been set aside for the public to express ideas, concerns, and comments for subject matter not listed on the agenda. There are no public hearings. Please be respectful in your comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes and please avoid repetitive comments. Is there anybody here for public input at this time? Yep.
Okay. It's always good to get
Yep, come up to the podium. There we go.
So I am Riley Warnick, you guys' Pony Express queen for this year. And I'm super grateful for you guys to allow me to come and speak to you for a second today. I am really pleased to announce that I am personally inviting you guys to our celebrations for Pony Express this year. We start this weekend with our parade, and then Saturday night is our derby. Next week is our rodeo, and we are so very sorry that it interferes with your guys' city celebrations, but we would like to invite you to our rodeo, and I do have a code for council members to get free tickets. And we would also like to invite you to come in and do a horse entry on a horse wagon around the rodeo for the grand entry. If you are interested in doing that, you can contact Councilwoman Melissa, and she will help you guys out and get you on our schedule. That's really all I wanted to come and talk to you guys about today, and I'm really hoping you can make it out there and come hang out with us.
Okay.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Anybody else for public input? Seeing none, I will close that portion of our meeting. Reports from the council. Are there any reports? Councilman Porter.
This, I guess, is just for staff. I've had a few residents approach me about wanting some lighted tennis courts within the city. I know that we've got a number of park projects in the 2 to 10 year plan. And so just, you know, if staff could look at the possibility of where that might fit or if it might be a good fit. So.
Okay. For Councilman McComber.
It's interesting. I've had similar requests, and the thought was maybe just making some tennis courts lit and then have pickleball striping as well, so people can, you know what I mean? It's multi-use court. I've had similar people asking. One, I just wanted to, on the record, thank the staff in coordinating the trip up to our new cemetery up in behind, well, it's in the Wildflower, but up behind Harvest Hills. Have gotten great feedback online from the posting. Stuff I've read, people are really pleased that they're like, now we're a real city because we can die here now. I thought that was sort of funny, but just really appreciate all of the efforts that went into making that happen. And I also Porter, I'd like to thank you for all of the efforts and helping support and getting that moving along. So I know you spent a lot of your own personal time helping along those lines. And my other thing is a request for staff is, I mentioned something to Owen as well on this via text, but I just wanted to get it on record. We just really, with the wind and spring, we really need to stay on top of our developers with especially their big dirt piles. The dirt, and especially so close to Redwood Road. I had a couple residents literally had to stop on Redwood Road because they did not feel comfortable progressing on the road, which is now dangerous because then they can get rear-ended. And I've actually experienced it myself once on Redwood Road where it wasn't as bad as I had to stop, but I was pretty nervous. And I also felt like my Jeep was getting sandblasted. Didn't make me very happy about that. So if we could just make sure that and even on the drive here, tons of dirt in the air. So thank you.
Okay. Councilman Carn.
Second that. I've had several residents reach out to me in the last few weeks complaining about the dirt blowing off of those large dirt piles, into residential areas and really making a mess. So if we could work with our developer partners on keeping their commitments to water those down regularly, that'd be great.
Okay. Anything else from the council? Mark, anything from administration? Okay. Department updates are in the packet. If you have questions, reach out to the department heads. We've got the consent item. Before we do that, Melissa, if you'd like to come up.
So we have two new board members that we were bringing forward for appointment tonight. We have Lisa Gibby and Todd Carpenter, and they are both here in the audience. If you want.
Okay.
So do you have any
Thank you.
questions for them?
No, but thank you.
Thank you for being willing to serve.
So, yeah.
I love that about our library. We have residents involved. I love our library.
So yes, thank you for being part of that and keeping it growing and moving. I know getting it state certified and staying there is taking a lot of effort. So thank you. I will entertain a motion on the consent calendar.
I'll move that we approve the consent calendar, including any staff findings and conditions. Consent items, not consent calendar.
Yes, consent items. I have a
I'll
first
second
from
that.
Councilman Wilden, a second from Councilman McComber. Any further discussion? Councilman Carn,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Wilden,
Aye.
McComber,
Aye.
Podeska.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have business items, Secret Springs preliminary plat, Firefly Homes applicant on the corner of McGregor and Redwood.
Dave, does this work? I just need to turn it on.
She's got hers on.
It's on the side. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, when we have him talk.
Good evening, council members. This is for the Secret Springs preliminary plat, which was forwarded positive recommendation from the Planning Commission. And we have our applicant here, Travis Barker, as well from Firefly Homes. So this is located on the corner of McGregor and Redwood in the R110 zone, surrounded by other single-family residential homes. Again, this is just showing the location and the zoning. The preliminary plat has been included in your packet. 14 lots are included in it. They're all over 10,000 square feet. There are landscaping plans because they include part of the Redwood Road Trail open space, and that is something that is vital as it connects to the school as well. And so that is something that we have a particular interest in. And regarding that, the applicant has a specific request that the city take ownership of that parcel of land. They are trying to avoid an HOA for the 14-lot subdivision. It is up to the city council to decide. There is no requirement to take it. And as was mentioned in your packet, since it is on the master trail plan, it is open to consideration. But again, it's up to the city council to decide if that is something that we should do. Typically, the city has not taken things that are smaller than 5 acres, and this is definitely smaller than 5 acres. So that is something to consider as well.
Councilman McComber has a question.
On that trail section, because that really, everything's a no-brainer except for that trail section from when I was reviewing the packet. Do we any of the landowners on either side, are they HOAs or what's happening further north and south on Redwood Road?
So this would literally be us mobilizing to just mow a few hundred feet of grass.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we can't contact Heron Hills or one and just see what kind of, because it's to their best interest to have that nicely maintained because it connects. I don't know. We can see, I don't really want to take, because it's immobilize them for that little teeny space. But I hate creating HOAs for this kind of thing. So it's a tough spot.
It is a tough spot, but again, consistently, we have not taken over these things. We will maintain the trail itself because the trail is
The trail surface.
trail surface, yes. But we would not recommend that you do that.
Oh. Sure.
How long was it again? I know it was in the packet. It's escaped me.
It's like 8 houses, 4 lot, 8
14 lots is the
14 lots.
subdivision.
It's like a long Redwood Road. So.
Oh, it's 14 lots in the subdivision. It's
Well,
about,
yeah, so.
it's about 4 lots long, so it's probably
Oh,
close to
yes.
400 feet.
It's roughly 500 feet,
Yeah.
Yeah.
roughly 30 feet wide.
Mobilized for 5
Again,
Hey, well, you probably could find a 12-year-old to do it for $10 a week, you know?
the challenge that we have though is
I'm kidding.
from a consistency standpoint, if we cherry pick and say, yes, we'll do this one, then I'm sure every other HOA will be right back here asking that we reconsider.
Well, Mark, it's exactly why I asked, because if it was other developers who weren't in an HOA, then it's much longer, but I can't justify it for 400.
All right.
Thank you.
Councilman Porter.
My thoughts are kind of along the lines of what Councilwoman Conver said. I was really hoping that next door was city-owned property or something like that we were already maintaining. But yeah, because I very much hate forcing a subdivision into an HOA, not just because of the HOA fees and everything like that, but I think it's a great asset to you to provide a non-HOA. You know, I moved into a non-HOA subdivision specifically because it wasn't in an HOA. I think that's something that we don't see in our market very much. And so I wish there was a way to do this, but yeah, mobilizing for 500 feet is really tough. And so hopefully
The capital reserve study will be very small on this one.
understood. I just, I guess, again, reach out to your neighbors and see if there's something you can work out.
Actually rock and then have the scouts weed it.
But yeah, I don't see how we can take on the costs of mobilizing to such a small parcel.
Do you have any comments, the applicant?
I would love to, if I could have a moment to respond to that. So I actually want to go off of the 5 acre rule that you guys have. According to you guys' city code, section 19.19.085 says that the city shall be responsible for the maintenance of all open space dedicated to and accepted by the city for public ownership and use where a permanent public use and city maintenance agreement has been recorded. So that 5 acre isn't actually a rule. It's just more of a guideline that you guys have really accepted. But with that being said, during our preliminary plat reviews, David Stroud was actually the one that was doing the preliminary plat reviews. And in there, I actually have a copy of a note that he put in there, and it says, indicate developer to install landscaping and irrigation. City will install trail and maintain all open space. So I don't have a problem with putting in the trail system. I don't have a problem with the trail system at all. The issue that I have is I have 14 homeowners who are paying for publicly used property, right? And so the liability falls on those 14 homeowners. So let's say that a kid or something's riding his bike and a dog, comes out and bites him, or he hits a rock and falls and smashes his face in. Well, the technical liability would fall back on those 14 homeowners. That's the issue that I'm having. I'm not having an issue with the trail system or anything along those lines. The problem that I'm having is it's used for the public. If it was used for private entity purposes or private homeowner purposes, I'd form the HOA like that. Not a problem at all. That's my comment for that.
Okay. Stroud?
Yeah, that was an early on in the discussion because our concern was getting the trail to the school. So that came out of a DRC discussion. Of course, it was later changed, said, no, we're not going to go that route. Obviously, nothing is set in stone when we make a comment like that. And we did change that after further discussions.
Okay. Kevin?
If I can make so we have been consistent all along as far as if they receive open space credit for the trail system, the development of the trail, the landscaping in the trail, that, they don't, the city doesn't really take over ownership. So they can't really, can't take advantage of more than one thing. So we've been consistent. If you want open space credit for it, you can have that, but it's yours to maintain. And another thing as well is the council remembers the trail policy that we implemented 5 or 6 years ago for trails on the east side of Redwood Road that had the asphalt, which is at the time, and I'm assuming is cheaper now as well with the concrete shortages. Asphalt is a cheaper material. And so that's kind of the trade-off. You can put in asphalt, but you have to maintain that because the city doesn't maintain the asphalt trails on the east side of Redwood Road. And addressing your concern about the liability, there actually, I'll point you, and you can discuss this with your attorney, but this Utah Code, section 57-14-101, it's called limitations on landowner liability. This law exempts you from any liability for users of your trail if you don't charge for that. For recreational amenity where there's no charge to the public, you're exempted from liability. So you should check that out. So that's one of the benefits of Utah law, is that we have that ability to be exempted from liability. So anyway, hopefully I addressed those concerns. We realize that it's kind of a difficult thing, and it's a challenge for developers, but this is the best way that we've been able to figure out how to deal with these issues with exactions law, being consistent with that, and also having a policy that where the city can manage its trail system in a way that's economically feasible.
May I respond to that?
Yes.
So the question that I have is we have a trail system that's basically paid for and maintained by 14 landowners for the entire city to use. My question is let's say that, 10 years from now, that HOA dissolves. How does the city handle that at that point? And then the next question that I would have is, considering the fact that we do have the 14, we have the 14 lots there, we're creating an HOA for 14 homes. I mean, I'd like to reference back to Eagle Mountain's master trail corridor. That's no longer around because they had a bunch of HOAs paying for publicly used property as well.
So if I could, Mayor and Council, we've received this question before, and our response has been, for those that have said, well, if we cancel our HOA, our response has been great. We'll create a special assessment area and assign those properties within that special assessment area the responsibility to maintain that infrastructure. So that would be our response to that question. And quite frankly, I don't know that this discussion's probably going the direction you're going to want it to go. But fundamentally, I mean, that's consistently what we've done across the city.
So so my understanding is we have the option of payment in lieu of open space, or we create the HOA to basically maintain that. And from the sounds of it, it's under the understanding that we're trying to double dip, I guess, on that, basically take advantage of the amenity trail credit plus, putting that trail system in. That's not what we're looking for. What we're looking for is we're willing to put that trail in. We're willing to make sure that the kids have a safe space to walk to school and be able to, go down there safely. I'm more than happy to pay payment in lieu of open space. I don't have a problem with that at all. I'm not looking to, I guess, take advantage of the city. I'm merely just looking at it from a standpoint of, I got 14 homeowners that are now going to be responsible for a trail system that's being used by the general public.
Councilman Carn.
Mark, aren't most of our trails along Redwood Road maintained by HOAs?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I mean, I think my neighbor in particular has 3 miles of Redwood Road trail system that we maintain.
Generally
that is
speaking,
open
yeah.
to the public.
Yeah, generally speaking, yes. There are a few anomalies, but that was kind of early days of the city. But
Okay.
we've been consistent with this for a very long time.
All right, I just want to make sure things.
And I guess maybe for you, Mayor and Council, if the applicant is not willing to accept those terms, then just don't approve the item tonight. I mean, that's always an option as well.
Okay. I'm not saying that I'm not willing to accept it by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just trying to get a better understanding of where everything is at and trying to make obviously our point known that, you know, we are creating an HOA for merely 400 feet being maintained.
Well, and to your point, we've had other applicants that have brought in similar conversations, and in virtually all of those discussions, it's rested with that being a responsibility from an equity standpoint on that development. So again, I would say, Mayor and Council, you've heard the applicant's request. You have a choice. You can vote it up or vote it down based on what your preference would be.
Do you have anything else in the presentation you need?
Not particularly. It was the Planning Commission's recommendation for legal to look into the legality of it, which they did. And as Kevin has discussed much of it, and to not accept it for city dedication. And then the only two other things to note that are special about it is that on, I guess you can't really see the number, but the lot that's on the corner of McGregor and Redwood, their driveway has to be all the way to the east in order, so that's far enough from the driveway intersection. And then in the southeast corner lot, there is an underground debris basin as well, that the surface will be maintained by the property owner, and there is an underground easement for the city for any maintenance there. And that's something that the council passed within the past 2 years to allow that for smaller subdivisions.
We've totally accepted that 100% all the way through.
Right.
You pull the findings and conditions, please.
Of course. And I do apologize, condition 5, I forgot to change to city council, if you have any other conditions to add.
So condition 3 is basically the position of the staff to the council. Okay.
This is specifically the recommendation of the planning commission. So that was their recommendation.
If there's no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Before, I think I should divulge that this group is still doing some construction with my mom's home. And so for that purpose, I feel I should abstain from the vote.
Okay. I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve business item 1 is listed on the agenda with all staff findings and conditions, changing condition 5 to the city council.
I second that.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman Porter, second from Councilman Carn. Any further discussion? Nope.
Just want to clarify number 3, that per our city code, a public trail access easement will need to be over that trail as well.
That needs to be added. And adding a condition, or adding to condition 3, that a city access easement be added to the trail.
Amended.
Okay, I have an amended first and amended second. Any further discussion? Councilman Porter?
Aye.
Councilman Wilden?
Aye.
Councilman McComber?
Aye.
Councilman Carn?
Aye.
Motion carries. Councilman Podeska abstained. Vote. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, business item 2, North Lake Meadow Rezone Concept Plan and Development Agreement. Keaton Morton applicant.
I will be taking this on in place of Chief Crawford. So I don't have any permission just to last for 16 games. Express that too. Okay, what we have here tonight is a public
Meeting item is for a rezone. It is the property you see identified in yellow. It contains 2 parcels. The request is to go to the R19 zone. The property is currently zoned agriculture. The general plan already has it identified as low density residential. Again, the site here with the zone map to go from ag to R19. And then just to give you a general plan is low density residential. The concept plan on the subdivision, and again, concept plans are non-binding. That will come back through the review process, probably have some alignments, some road locations where the access changed on that, but again, non-binding. Then the option to approve, which is the recommendation we are giving to you, as well as the planning commission. And then you have the option to continue or deny.
Okay, does the applicant have anything they'd like to add before the council?
Yeah, just I'm excited to be here. It's been and thank the council for making it here. This is the first city council meeting I've been to since COVID. So yeah, but your staff's been awesome to work with. They really are. We had a little bit of some questions as far as the development agreement. I think we've kind of worked through most of those. The only other question, I guess, we kind of wanted to work through, and I guess I don't know how we're going to kind of address those with the development agreement as far as the utility upsizing. Those are the questions we had. The city was wanting us to upsize lines, which we are happy to do so. We just want to be reimbursed for that upsizing. Yep. And then also the other question I kind of wanted to address was just the power lines. We are more than happy to bury power lines. This is the third development I've done kind of in this area, and we never had to bury the power lines. If other developers or the school had to, I think it's a charter school that Boyer has just to the east. As long as they were required to do so, we are happy to do that as well. We just want to make sure that we're treated basically the same as other developers, just because on the other developments I've had to do, and I understand it's kind of a new ordinance, and I understand how that works, and just to let you know, I have reached out to the other landowners. I know it's kind of like you got this little development right here. I have reached out to the other landowners to try to expand and make it a bigger project, but they are just unwilling to work with us right at this moment. But we are still in contact with them. So,
okay.
Yeah, I think the applicant just had a concern about that language in the development agreement. So we're operating under the premise that this is a template that all developers can use. And so we start with that, and then the planners take that and present it to the applicant. We're fine with upsizing paying for the upsized costs for those system improvements. He mentioned the other concern. This line that goes along 145 North is both the distribution line and a transmission line. So the lower lines are distribution lines, and the code requires those to be buried. And then he had another concern about, I'm not even sure if there's a trail on 145 North.
It's actually the same kind of,
okay.
There's a trail along 145 North, and we had to do it on our development. We just want to make sure that we are given open space credit for that. We're more than happy to, on our other development, the HOA maintains it. I don't have anything against that in particular. But we just want to be able to be given open space credit for that, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And that's the city's policy for that. Absolutely. Okay. But I believe those were your concerns, and we'll go ahead and make that amendment to the development agreement as far as reimbursement for the upsized costs for the system improvements.
Looks like it'd be about a 16-inch secondary water line for the length of their property.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Questions from the council? If none, I'll entertain. All of a sudden it lit up.
Mayor?
Councilman Carn.
Thank you. I'm comfortable with the rezone going to R9. It's consistent with the neighboring area. My concerns come in with the choppy nature that you've already addressed. When we are developing this little island and the neighboring properties are not on board at this time with the other developments just to the west. I'm not comfortable with the concept plan. I'm okay with the rezone, but I would like staff to work with the applicant to really look at our connecting streets and where they're going to come into play in the future, so that we will hopefully have less roads stubbing into 145, which will potentially be a bigger road in the future. And right now I'm seeing all these little choppy neighborhoods, each putting a road down onto 145. And that's going to be a problem in the future. So I'm comfortable with the rezone. Please work with staff on your concept plan.
And Councilmember Carr, we've had that discussion today with the applicant about the road. That was my comment earlier, that that road alignment will change just a little bit.
That was my main concern, so.
Perfect. Councilman Fidesca?
So has the discussion been with that East Road that goes north and south, as far as we typically have developers improve their portion of the side of the road segment? It's my understanding that we don't currently own that road.
Which road?
The one that's, so if you're looking at the site map, it's the one that travels north and south off of 145. Or sorry, just north.
The existing road?
Yeah, the existing road.
The one over on the.
No, it's the Lehigh Road.
On the east side.
Yeah, on the east side of their development.
Yeah, I believe that's the
That's
Lehigh
just the
Road.
little
correct?
flag part of their.
Yeah, it's
property.
1700 West.
Yeah.
That's owned by Lee.
And so that's where I was just wondering, like, what happens to the extent that that road I see eventually becoming part of our city, and then whose responsibility is it to put curb and gutter for that? And
Yeah, Jeremy, you can speak up, but I do recall what I recollect in the past we've had this is that it's just installed to Lehigh standards, whatever those frontage improvements are.
okay,
That road will stay in Lehigh.
One of them.
Okay.
yeah.
For our agreement with Lehigh.
okay,
Yes, they would have to, if it was they would have to meet either Saratoga or Lehigh's frontage improvement requirements, but either way. they
for
are
that little
required-
section.
Either way, they're
Okay.
required to do the frontage improvements.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilman McComber?
So with the power line situation, the consistency is that codes change. And if you brought your development in 10 years ago, then you wouldn't have had that situation to maybe some of the other neighbors, but the code is, and you're required to meet the current code. The whole point of that is the distribution lines being buried, the transmission line are too hot. But it also just helps with the, not just the look and feel of the city is what we're looking for, but also as a safety thing, because that transmission lines, I think I'm getting them right. The ones that are distributing the power to all the houses, having those buried with the great amount of wind I talked about at the beginning and different things, we don't have the same power outages issues like American forecast, because their power lines are all up above all the houses and in the trees. And so that's why we made that decision as a city to move those underground.
Yeah, and I understand that the code will change, but I think that school was built after that ordinance changed. And I guess
They're
that's where,
subject to state code, not city code.
Schools aren't subject
Mark,
to
okay.
anything that we.
And if I could, Keaton, I think you got by with your last one because we hadn't made that distinction. So tie goes to the runner.
well,
I wouldn't
Willow
push your
Glen, I
luck.
didn't plat that one, so don't blame me on that one. I bought it after it was platted.
So schools.
The school may
schools,
have to bury-
Transportation, we have some control over the transportation part, but
We,
that's why their fences are chain link fence. You don't see any other chain link fence in our city except around schools.
Yeah.
So there's
Okay.
certain things that they're exempted.
I
from.
believe.
And to your point, Councilman McComber, I mean, we're looking at as a city at investing several $1 million to bury
Our own
those,
lines.
the ones that were done before the code came in. So
And from our
this
property.
is something where we don't want to create more for us to have to do to catch up with our code.
And our
So,
own properties, right? Where
right,
we-
we're doing our own
Perfect.
city properties as
So that
well.
requirement to bury the distribution portion was put on the school. Now, as we do with schools, where they're pushing us back and trying to invoke exemptions.
And they
but
do.
We've not conceded that. So we did put that requirement on them, and we're
So
negotiating
it's
with them,
TBD.
determining whether that's something, so.
Basically, we'll go to court. I sound.
Keaton, don't
I
step in
understand.
that one.
That's I understand, so that's fair. No worries.
Thank you.
that's a legal position. Obviously, we are going to we have taken the position they are required to do that. That is
Right.
not one of the exemptions that schools have in state code.
Okay.
So the problem is with schools, we don't have the leverage on the front end because they can get their building permits without the city's approval. So that's
That's
why
where
we're
the
struggling with
problem
that.
arises.
So it's
That
an
makes sense.
enforcement issue.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And they just ignore it.
Perfect. Councilman Wilden, you had a comment?
I'm comfortable with the rezone as well because it's consistent with what's around there. I just wanted to say, I know you'll need to work through the concept plan. There's some funky things on here, but well, just how the lots look. But I do appreciate you weren't trying to squish every single lot into the 9,000 like minimum.
Yeah.
There's a couple on there, 10,000. Looked like there was one like 16,000. So I appreciate the.
And a lot of that will probably change, just.
I understand, but I'm just saying from a concept thing, I appreciate from a city standpoint, not trying to go with the minimum size on all of them.
And
So,
any corner lot would have to be 9,900 as well.
yeah. Well, regardless, I appreciate the thought. And that's all I have.
Basically, keep the thought moving forward is what he's saying.
Don't shoot for the absolute minimum on every lot.
Perfect. Okay, if there's no other comments, I'll entertain a motion.
I will move.
Cookie in my mouth.
Last one.
I will move that we approve business item 2 as stated on the agenda, including any staff findings and conditions.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman Wilden, second from Councilman McComber. Any further discussion on the motion? Councilman Wilden,
Aye.
McComber,
Aye.
Podeska.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Karn.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you for your time. Okay, we've got Wildflower, Village Plan 4, Nate Ship, DAI applicant, Mountain View Corridor and Harvest Moon Drive.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For this item, the applicant is requesting approval of a Village Plan 4 within Wildflower. This is in the northwesternmost portion of Wildflower, near the water pond that we visited the first stop on our site visit last week. They're proposing just under 140 acres and 414 units, about 40 acres of open space, mostly trail corridor in compliance with the community plan. And I'll turn this item over to the council for questions.
Okay.
And the applicant is here, Caitlin Mickelson and Gina.
Yeah.
Oh, and Nate, sorry.
Well, if Nate's here, I'm voting no.
He's gone. Okay, you're good.
Okay.
Do you have any comments, Nate? To add before we?
So that I can stay in good graces with your recorder. My name is Nate Ship. I'm with DAI and I represent the proposal tonight. We appreciate your time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any comments from the council? Question, Councilman Wilden?
I was able to go on part of that tour and I think that was the first area we went to with the nice views. Anyway, those are going to be some beautiful views up there. So I think you're doing a great job putting some nice homes in that area. So.
And you're putting your multifamily down that.
Yep. Yep.
And the multifamily will have separate open space and amenities as well.
Okay, Councilman Karn?
I don't know if we talked about this. Have you determined who's going to be building up here yet? Can you share that at this point or no?
I believe we can share that.
Just in case.
No, the property that's there in the blue on your screens is Edge Homes will be building. And then the property in the yellow is under contract with Toll Homes.
Oh, that's great. They'll build some nice homes.
Yeah. Toll will be bringing in their highest level, their high-end homes.
This is just to second what was said. This is going to be a really nice area. I think in the city, the views up here are fantastic. I think people who get the opportunity to buy up here are getting. I think they're getting a really nice product. So I appreciate that the packet's really clean. Everything complies. I've got no problem.
Okay. There's no other comments. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve Wildflower Village Plan Business Item 3, Nate Ship, DAI applicant, Mountain View Corridor and Harvest Moon Drive Ordinance 2118 with all findings and conditions in the staff packet.
I second.
Have a first from Councilman Karn, a second from Councilman Podeska. Any further discussion on the motion? Councilman Karn.
Aye.
Podeska.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Motion passes
I don't know how to deal
unanimously.
with this. This is easy things.
And thank you for bringing
Thank
Toll
you.
Brothers.
Appreciate it.
I know we've looked at having them come.
They're going to be a great
times.
addition. It's going to be
Yeah.
a good one.
Thank you.
I voted aye, even though you.
I know. I thought for sure I was going to get a no.
Okay, thank you.
The applicant for item number 3 asked that we-
4.
Asked that we revisit that motion really briefly.
Okay.
That's okay. So the issue with item number 2 is the applicant felt that development agreement amendment, whereas we were basically upsizing, reversing the upsizes to the system. That should be read as a specific condition of approval. Condition number one gives me discretion to review that and approve that, and he requested that be specifically called that.
The reimbursement of the
Sizing. We
upsize.
typically don't do that,
If he's correct, he didn't include that in your motion.
but we typically don't though.
And I had to be the one to make that.
Well, no,
motion.
but we typically don't because that's the whole point of you're able to enter in and represent us in that negotiation. That's fine.
Yeah, that got missed in the development agreement. The development agreement requires upsides at their cost.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So do I have to make a new motion?
Or just amend it?
Yeah, you can make
An amendment.
a
Motion to reconsider.
consider and then add that condition.
So 2 motions.
So I'll move that we reconsider business item 2.
Second.
Have a first from Councilman Wilden, second from Councilman Porter. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
I will move that I amend my original motion to include a condition that the master development agreement include a reimbursement of upsizing costs for system improvements.
Have a amended
I'll
first.
second that one.
I don't remember. Second.
Who seconded it? Oh, I have a second from Councilman McComber. Any further discussion from the council? Podeska? Aye. McComber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
Karn?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We have business item 4, notice of intent for boundary line adjustment with Lehigh City, Scott McLaughlin, resolution R21-40. Is that yours, Kevin?
Yeah, so if I can just explain this really briefly, Mr. McLaughlin owns property north of Pioneer Crossing on that corner of Saratoga Road and Pioneer Crossing, and has made a request that the council, the Saratoga Springs Council and the Lehigh City Council consider a mutual boundary adjustment between the two cities of that property. The resolution, the original resolution that was drafted and put in the packet for the council is the boundary adjustment that we've used, the form that we've used for the past 3 or 4 boundary adjustments with Lehigh. What happens with this is if you choose to approve this resolution, this expresses your intent to adjust that mutual boundary. This is a legislative decision for the council to make. You can choose to express your intent by passing this resolution. If you express your intent by passing the resolution, what that starts is the public noticing requirements, as well as scheduling a public hearing. The public hearing has to occur no later than 60 days from the date that this resolution is adopted. And then we also have to, like I said, we have to do the public notice in the paper for 3 consecutive weeks. At the next council meeting, if you choose to adopt this intent, there'll be a public hearing where you can choose to approve or deny the boundary adjustment at that point. Mr. McLaughlin has requested that the red lines be made that are shown on your screen up there. This request came in late last week. And so he's asked for that to be included in the intent resolution that you may or may not adopt. So you have different options tonight. You could choose to adopt this resolution, expressing your intent to adjust the boundaries as was presented in the packet, or you could choose to deny that and not pass the resolution. Another option is you could choose to approve the resolution with Mr. McLaughlin's requested changes, or you could choose to deny the boundary adjustment. Either way, you would be denying the intent resolution. So that's all I have on the matter. If you'd like to see the property, we can pull that up as well. And I think that Mr. Curl would like to present on behalf of the applicant.
Would you like to?
Yes, do you want to say anything for a minute?
No, go ahead.
Okay, I guess. So first, thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Manager Christensen, and City Attorney for the attention, and the City Recorder, Cindy, who's, you're not Cindy, but Cindy. I needed a copy of a similar resolution that was put forward to the council in 2000, and I asked for it on Friday, and she had it delivered to me this morning. And so I appreciate her efforts to be so prompt. The reason we wanted that resolution so that we could model what we're asking for now on the basis of what was asked for then, because that resolution addressed an adjoining property. Dropping way back in 1997, the town was incorporated, Saratoga Springs. Mr. McLaughlin had some part in that, and as a consequence, a boundary was drawn in 1997 that included the 45 acres that we're looking at here now, and then just off the map to the right, some 10 or 15 or 20 acres that was also in the county adjoining Lehigh City at the time in 1997 was also included in the Saratoga incorporation boundary. In the year 2000, there was a need at the intersection of 2300 and Pioneer Crossing for a church to be built, and the landowners wanted to develop some homes. And so the motion that Cindy provided so quickly, the resolution was presented, and the motion passed that allowed the boundary adjustment to be made that moved the ground that is just west across 2300 out of the city of Saratoga into the city of Lehigh to facilitate that. In the years 2008 through 2010, Pioneer Crossing was constructed and that created a previously not existing natural boundary that, had it been in place in 1997, perhaps would have guided the boundary for the city, Saratoga City Incorporation. In 2012, there was a follow-on event where there was a creation of the Saratoga Community Development and Renewal Agency, and the boundary of that was drawn, again, incorporating the 45 acres that Mr. McLaughlin owns. And at each of these points in time, the question maybe might have been put, where should the 45 acres be? Should it be in Saratoga? Should it be in Lehigh? In 97, it was a toss-up. In 2000, when the church went in, I started to think that had the question been put to Mr. McLaughlin, he would have said, yeah, let's go along with the neighborhood because it's houses being built, and that's the sensible thing there. When Pioneer Crossing went in, that seemed like if the question had arisen at that point in time, the natural answer would have been, yes, let's draw the boundary on the geographic dividing line of Pioneer Crossing and not create a gore, which is a term that I had never heard before, but I suspect the city attorney might remember from law school, a doctrine called strips and gores. Have you ever heard of that?
I haven't, no.
It was interesting.
We call it an island or peninsula.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we don't qualify under either an island or a peninsula. And when our attorney explained to me what a gore was, I said, well, I think I know what a strip is. What's a gore? And he said, it's where something jabs in where it shouldn't. And so as we come before the council and recognize that there are a whole bunch of issues, the reason that we at the last minute, and we thank you for incorporating the red line and putting it in front of the council for possible adoption, is that we feel that the question stratifies, and the primary level should be the landowner. So Mr. McLaughlin desire at this point in time with the circumstances that exist at this moment should be entertained and given addressed first. We recognize there's impact to Saratoga City that we've tried to contemplate, and we certainly acknowledge that it's the council's responsibility to look at those first, or at least look at those solidly. And there are some impacts on Lehigh, but we think and are asking the council to address this with what I'll term, not because it's a good word, but I think it's the more graceful approach is cooperation between Saratoga and Lehigh. We do have a parallel, or actually the complementary resolution before the Lehigh City Council next week. They've indicated a preliminary inclination to adopt the resolution and move forward. And so, but primarily we think that, are hopeful that the city of Saratoga will approach it in a way, because it's what the property owners want. We feel that it's in the interest, certainly of the lakeshore neighbors down on south of Pioneer Crossing all the way to the lake. I don't know how many homes will eventually be there. I saw a number at one time in the neighborhood of 1,700 or 1,800 homes that will be built there. We think that it's having the boundary adjustment and the Mink Ranch go would be advantageous to the commercial development that could occur north of 750 north between that and Pioneer Crossing. And certainly the Lehigh neighbors who have had to sign over the years and recorded a separate document acknowledging that they're building next to a mink ranch. As I thought about that, I suppose that if you live in the flight path at an airport, if you live under an overhead train, and if you live downwind of a mink ranch, probably you need to sign a separate agreement to acknowledge what you're undertaking. And I've yet to hear anyone say I live upwind of a mink ranch. I may not have a job in the morning, but that's the truth. Nobody says I live upwind of a mink ranch. There is no such thing.
Our wind goes all directions.
That's right. That's right. And
people in Saratoga Springs have smelled that mink ranch for many years.
Yes. And as a separate note, but to go back to the proposal for up there on the 2100 North as the Mountain View corridor curves around, we are under contract on the Lehigh Mink Ranch to sell it and cease operations next year. And so we are trying to exit Utah Valley with our mink ranching operations.
You're smart to wait as long as you did. Your land's worth a lot more.
We have mixed feelings about that because
We're running Alberta now.
Yeah. And so our feeling is that there may be some diminution, however that word is said, that Saratoga City experiences if this is adopted and 45 acres goes into Lehigh. However, we think that that's balanced by the advantage of having the mink ranch go in February coming rather than in some years after that. We do have a contract now. The contract is contingent on the boundary adjustment occurring. And so we petitioned the city to address this, address it in the form, the red line form that we've presented it, to give first consideration to the landowner's interests and address that request and balance out the rest of it. The last thing that maybe if there are any questions, I'll try to entertain questions, please.
Okay. Councilman McComber.
So I think from the council, I've been around the longest. I'm very familiar with this property. This has been part of our long-term vision and goals in our city for as long as I've been on. When we were designing the land area use, this was zoned for a commercial. Pioneer Crossing was well known that was coming through. We've built a lot of infrastructure to be able to support this area. We've invested money into it. bringing all of the development with DR Horton coming up there. We have the commercial land on the southwest corner. So for me, absolutely, I'm a big believer in the landowner, but then we have landowners. So the city of Saratoga Springs has part of our long-term vision and plans counted on this regional commercial space to have that sales tax dollars. I think that everyone in this room is pretty familiar with how state code works on sales tax. It's point of sale, it's in your city, you get that percent, and then it's based on distribution by population after that. I'm not comfortable forfeiting that 1% to Lehigh when there's been many opportunities in other land where we've gone to Lehigh and said, it doesn't make sense why you have a development that goes all the way up as a peninsula, all the way up to Redwood Road, crosses canals, rivers, and they're like, no, but we want that commercial space on Redwood Road. So I get why Lehigh would do it. I have nothing against Lehigh. If I was a Lehigh city councilman, I'd be fighting just as much for that Redwood Road frontage, literally surrounded on 3 major sides by Saratoga Springs. And they're putting a for-profit hospital there, and they're going to make a lot of money there. I can't blame them. Why would you think that I would want to forfeit sales tax revenue when I've been planning on it? It's been part of our master plan, and just give that to Lehigh. You said about natural barriers like Pioneer Crossing. I appreciate your argument. That's what you're here for to do. But Lehigh doesn't care about natural borders like rivers. They have no problem crossing rivers, sending sewer lines across rivers that is irrigation and drinking water for many people in this state. And they have no problem sending another sewer line across because they want to develop on the west side where they can, where their former city council member annexed in their land in a unique circumstance many years ago. So 21 years ago, maybe there would have been a different conversation, but now with the regional commercial demands that corner will have, it's if there's a gas station on that corner, which would make sense, any kind of convenience store, grocery store, anything like that would go there. There is so much value there. And we put so much effort into it from our city. I personally, as one of 5, cannot even come close to thinking that I would want to lose that, especially because it doesn't meet the long-term interests of the city and the investment we've made in that property. So,
yes, let me respond to that maybe with 2, or if I lose count, 3 things. We've never been before the council on this before, but we have for approximately 6 years been working with the city manager and the city attorney and Jeremy, the city staff, about the possibilities. Always the same. Your position has been expressed always. The intent has always been, yes, we'll get you services. There was one time years ago when the promise was made, we'll have utilities to you within a year. I've spoken with the DR Horton's folks. They say they're coming up to 7750. They're not coming any further than that. It'll be up to the commercial developer to do that. And so I look at it and I guess, first of all, look at it and say, recognizing that it's been in the city's plan for a long time. And I look at it and say that the city's had an eye on it and has been hopeful for it. And it may come to fruition in the model that you're talking about of commercial, but our intention right now is not to sell it for commercial. It would be residential. And we recognize that we're passing by.
Why would you want residential on that corner? That is the short selling that land.
Yes, yes. So the corner will have commercial use.
Of course, the corner will. Okay, that makes sense.
But back in the 45 acres, so we have an odd property where the aspect of it doesn't lend itself to a big box retailer of any type.
You can strip malls. And
yeah, so we're looking at
there's
strip
lots
malls.
of opportunities.
There are lots of opportunities, and we've elected to pass by future value because what we need and want is to move the mink ranch, and we have an opportunity for a sale that facilitates and allows us to do that.
So personally, if you would have brought to us saying, hey, we have this potential sale of this property, we don't have the utilities there, we want to do this. We've done it before where we've expedited our own projects to get utilities to these kind of locations because we see the financial impact, the benefit to the city. I mean, I think I've done probably 6 of those in my tenure where we prematurely brought in utilities because we saw the long-term value. There was a large development that we were strongly considering bringing in utilities. And then, you know, and doing that ahead of time and early. And so allowing for development to happen. So obviously that corner needs to be commercial. No one wants to live on the corner of Saratoga Road and Pioneer Crossing as a home. That would be crazy talk, right? I mean, that's a gas station if I've ever seen one with a convenience store behind it. The idea of a strip mall or something like that, those are very successful in these types of linear type. I mean, again, been doing this for about 11 years now. So I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I've done it for a while. So me personally, I'll end my comment, to turn the time back over to you, Mayor, in a second, but I personally am not going to be in a position because the amount of value here, any investment we would make from literally just crossing a road long-term, it's a strong, good investment for the people of Saratoga Springs, the 40,000 people of Saratoga Springs to benefit from. And that was been our plan and our intent all along. And I can see the time back to you, Mayor.
Okay, Councilman Porter.
I agree with much of what Councilman McComber said. Can we go back to the red line too? I want to get to that. My biggest concern is that this is, I understand your argument that, you know, we should defer to the landowner. However, for several, you said 97 is when you came into the city. So you've been part of the city for 20 plus years.
I don't know how long you've been here, but so I don't know how many on the council recognize the part that Mr. McLaughlin played in the city. Are you familiar with that?
Yep, $22 million.
Yeah, we're all familiar with
so
Mr. McLaughlin's participation in the city, and we appreciate it. But at the same time, we have to look out for not just Mr. McLaughlin, but the entire city. That's my job. Is that what I was hired by the citizens to do, is look out for the entire city. I understand the property rights argument. I appreciate it, but you've been part of the city. You're within our agreed upon boundary with Lehigh. To open up that is something which I am very reticent to do, to open up that boundary agreement, because as has been expressed, every time we've discussed that with Lehigh, we lose. So, and I just wanted to point out something, the red line that you proposed, unfortunately for you, probably is what made my mind up the most. The thing that you crossed out was finds that the boundary adjustment and common boundaries of Lehigh City is in the best interests of the residents of City of Saratoga Springs. And I have to agree that you would have to cross that out, because this boundary agreement would not be in the best interests of the citizens at large of Saratoga Springs.
Yes. Yeah. So 3 things. First of all, I wasn't attempting to trade upon Mr. McLaughlin's history. Didn't know whether you knew or not. And so we're not asking for any special treatment or accommodation beyond that of a property owner. And I did create the red line exactly for that, recognizing the council's responsibility to look out for the interests of the city first and foremost. However, I answer that saying, knowing that that's your duty, I don't know if I can think of an illustration. It's not, as much as you'd like to pick the fruit from the tree, it's not your tree. And so I think that in that way, I can frame it, and I see it as why the property owner should be considered first and given greater weight.
Well, and to your point, I'll just say, if this was a unincorporated county land and you came saying, I want to go to Lehigh, I would say Godspeed and God bless, enjoy your time in Lehigh.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll get as much value as you will be in Saratoga Springs, but that's a matter of opinion. However, you're part of Saratoga Springs, you're within our boundary agreement with Lehigh, and there has to be a point where we say, look, we're going to abide by the rules and the plans that have been laid in place and been in place for 20-something years. And we have to move forward with that plan. We can't keep changing our horses history.
Yes. I recognize that. And that's why I I guess, framed that there was a graceful approach to this. The ungraceful hard way is a disconnect, and addressing the disconnect is less desirable for a whole bunch of reasons. First of all, it just strikes me as not neighborly if we can reach an agreement, but sometimes that's what we devolve to, and so the disconnects. Yeah. So the burden of proof, we four of the items on the burden of proof. There are four. We don't have to meet two because they're self-evident. The first one is viability. If we can disconnect from Saratoga, are momentarily in the county and then are annexed into Lehigh, there's not really a viability issue. And so then the only remaining one that we'd have a burden of proof on would be justice and equity. And justice and equity will fall to the property owner, we believe firmly. And so in closing, well, maybe I won't close because there may be more questions, but as I thought of how to sum this up, there's a long poem by T.S. Eliot, but 3 lines of it say, "We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time." And so I think that ultimately, gracefully or circuitously, we will arrive at having this treated in the way that Mr. McLaughlin has requested. And so without wanting to be threatening at all, having no desire to be a terrorist or anything like that, I present that only in that light, that you're familiar with it, yes, and indicate that it's a least desirable option for us.
Understood, and you're welcome to make your choices based on our decision.
Councilman Wilden.
I appreciate your presentation, everything else that's been said. I would just say the most gracious thing would have been to bring the proposed development to us. What could have saved you time and us time, unless we were going to stockpile high-rise apartment buildings in here. I don't know, you don't need to disclose that, but that would have been the gracious thing, because as a council, we've never seen any proposal here. So let's just make sure we understand that we were never contacted, at least as a council, maybe city staff, but what could have gone here. And while it's zoned residential, or not residential, planned regional commercial, we've made accommodations in the past with many developers to find something that's mutually beneficial for the city and the landowner. And all you have to do is look around at everything that's been a great benefit, like North Shore, your partner. They got a little bit more density, but they brought a great amenity. And then they're putting regional commercial, neighborhood commercial there too. So that's certainly an option. So I would just step back and say that would have been the gracious approach. And I agree with everything. We put, as a city, put time and energy here. And I'd welcome you, at least as one council member, instead of continuing to go on this path, at least approach the city staff and see if there's development that might actually work for everyone versus, taking the shotgun approach and trying to back us off. So that's my standpoint, is that we put time, energy, and funds into this as a city.
Yes, so may I respond to that just briefly and ask the mayor and maybe Mark to respond to your understanding of our history of discussions about this.
I think we're debating it far too much. I would say hold your responses instead of rebutting everything. Why don't we let the council speak? And then, if there's a closing thought or comment summation, because I don't think that the back and forth dialogue is probably going the direction that you're wanting to.
Councilman Carn, do you have anything? Councilman Podeska?
Yeah, I appreciate everything that's been said as well. We've been here since 2001, so not quite when the city was started, but that area has been from day one planned for that. And I agree to the sentiment of, if it wasn't part of the city and you wanted to go to Lehigh, we usually don't stop that. Whereas it is a boundary within our city. And so, yeah, I just wanted to second what has been said.
Okay. Any other comments? Yeah, do you have final comments?
No, other than thank you for entertaining the resolution.
Mark, did you have anything? Okay. Then I will-
Can I just add, just really briefly, I think there's another reason you might want to consider, it's as far as this property being located in Saratoga Springs. We do have a water well there. That was part of the original purchase agreement when we acquired the Lake Mountain Mutual Water system. There was a well there, and there is a well there that we acquired and paid for. I would say there's a public interest in keeping that well in the incorporated limits of Saratoga Springs. So we have more control on it. We can protect it, and we can provide the water lines to and from that well in a more efficient way. So we don't have to go through another city to get approval. But anyway, just to add a thought to that as well. I don't know if Mr. Curl wanted to respond to that, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
No, other than maybe yes. The first, I think, I'm slightly concerned that we're getting painted with the history of the relationship between Lehigh and Saratoga on boundary, and ask that whatever the vote is, that this be voted on its merits, not on the basis of what
Gary,
happened.
on that comment, we did detach the piece at the north end below the canal to Lehigh. So to say there's a history, there's always going to be a history with every city. That's just the way it is. But we didn't stop that one when we sat down, worked it out. It worked out for McLaughlin's benefit to it. It's below the canal. It worked out for Lehigh. It worked out for us. So your comment right there is kind of misleading, that we have worked it out and we have given into Lehigh's favor when it makes sense.
Yes, no, and I wasn't questioning that. I'm just saying that maybe from the communications with the city, not the council, I've gathered that there has been frustration in the relationship between the city. However, the cities do coexist and resolve things that they need to as they need to. In terms of that being the case, maybe that point leads to city being Saratoga having confidence in Lehigh being reasonable in protecting the interests of the well and the water lines from the well, and that they just wouldn't have to be fearful that Lehigh City is going to hold you hostage in any way. But beyond that, thank you very much.
We don't have a motion yet. Can we call the question?
I'll do the
Yeah,
motion.
I'll do a
Okay.
motion.
All right.
I move that we deny the notice of intent for boundary line adjustment with Lehigh City, Scott McLaughlin, Resolution R21-40 dated today, with some of the main reasons it doesn't meet the long-term vision of the city. Our plans for this property have been in place for over 20 years. The fact that Kevin reminded us that we actually have property that is the city's, a well on this property, and it would be the best interest of all of the citizens of Saratoga Springs to maintain that property right. Also, the fact that the future revenues from sales tax is also a benefit to the citizens of Saratoga Springs and has been in part of our master plan for as long as I can remember. I'm sure there are other reasons, but I'll stick with those four for now.
And as the newest member of the council with no history with Lehigh and boundary adjustments, I second that.
Okay, so I have a first from the senior council member and a second from the junior. No, I have a first from Councilman Comber, second from Councilman Carn. Any further discussion on the motion from the council? Councilman Podeska?
Aye.
Councilman McComber?
Aye.
Councilman Wilden?
Aye.
Councilman Porter?
Aye.
Councilman Carn?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Yeah.
I don't know that we can do anything because it's not on the agenda, but I'm a little concerned that Lehigh is expressing such, the council apparently, according to his testimony, is expressing some interest in taking up this resolution at their next meeting under the impression that we're somehow supportive of this. I think we need to notify them that we are
Yes.
not supportive of this.
Yes, Mark, I think staff needs to direct a letter from the council to Lehigh City, reminding them of the boundary agreements,
To council members
To council
specifically.
members,
and mayor.
asking them to abide by the boundary agreement that we have agreed upon for years now. Yes, please.
Is that unanimous?
Unanimous, yeah.
Yep.
Aye.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, thank you. Okay, I have a first, I have a second, all in favor?
Aye.